Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Andrew Dory. I'm president of the Fort Knox Community Schools Board of Education, and I'd like to welcome everyone to the November-December school board meeting today. If anyone, if you noticed or didn't notice, if anyone wants an agenda, there's still a few on the table over here to the left at the door. So feel free to go grab one if you want to see the agenda as we move along. But like I said, happy holidays to everyone, and we're happy to hit the halfway point almost after this meeting for the school year. I think we've done some good things. I think we've got a lot of things that we're working on to also complete. And at any rate, great crowd today, so welcome to everybody, and thank you for coming and attending today. So with that said, we'll go ahead and bring the meeting to order, and I'll need to go through a roll call. So Ms. Stalin?
Present.
Mr. Allen?
Here.
Mr. Neal?
Here.
Ms. Short?
Here.
I always forget your name, I'm sorry. Jennifer, I know that. So we do have all present, and at this point in time, we can go ahead and get started. Okay, so we did have the minutes from the last meeting issued out to the board members, so having had an opportunity to look through those minutes, do we have any corrections, concerns, or anything that needs to be added to those? Okay, hearing nothing, we'll go ahead and the minutes are approved from last meeting. I really apologize, I'm looking for my agenda. I don't have an agenda. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so approval of minutes are complete. So the next thing we'd like to do is we want to recognize an outstanding student in our school system here. Most of you may or may not, some of you may know, some of you may not, but the National Merit Scholars Program is something that comes out of PSAT testing, I believe, and we're fortunate in our high school to have a national semifinalist. And at this time, Mr. Perry, president at the principal at the high school, would like to make a presentation. That too.
So yes, we do want to recognize one of our great students. So William, come on up here with me. And so as Colonel Doring was saying, PSAT, 1.5 million students take it every year. And the top 1.25%, top 1% basically, qualify to be a national semifinalist. So we are very proud of William and his efforts and his work. So can we give William a hand? And William, today I just kind of did, I did a certificate that I signed along with Dr. Yolanda Washington, our superintendent. And the College Board will also send you a certificate and some things like that. So that we'll give out for honors night. William, congratulations. All right.
And so you will know there were 5 in the southeast, and he is the only one for the Kentucky community. So congratulations to you.
I'm actually a little prouder of his accomplishment because Captain Hall works in my command, so
Okay.
I didn't have anything to do with this. He's way smarter than me, but at any rate, I'm actually a little personal connection there as well, so congratulations.
And Dad, did you get one more picture, and then we're going to give him a moment to share a little bit. So, yeah. And then send that to Mr. Perry, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And we're going to give you a few minutes to share a little bit about your goals and aspirations, and we thank you for doing the outstanding work.
All right, thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming here today. Yeah. Oh, nervous. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Here, I'll just stand right here and hold on to it.
We left him all up there.
We left them all, we just left him. Okay, so Mr. Perry's going to
Where
stay
you go-
there.
yeah.
Talk to
So
Mr.
where
Perry.
are you going to college? Where are you have plans for after high school?
Oh, I've applied to a lot of colleges so far, and I've been accepted to quite a few places.
Okay.
Savannah College of Art Design, University of Kentucky, University of Louisville.
Yes.
Alabama. University of Alabama. University of Auburn. Have options everywhere.
So you probably with this and you know your work in the classroom, you've probably got a lot of options. So that's awesome. We're very proud of you, and we're looking forward to seeing where you know what you choose next. So,
Yes.
yeah. So keep it up. Keep up the good work.
Okay.
All right. Cool. Thank you.
I know that was on the spot for you.
Sorry, I didn't really know what to say.
He's going back to.
He's ready to get back to class, I'm sure.
Back to studying.
Back to studying. Thank you,
Okay, well,
Dad.
thanks so much to the Halls. We're very proud of that accomplishment, and you know, we're looking forward to seeing what the future holds for both for you and here for Fort Knox High School. It's big stuff.
Yes.
Okay, well, thanks so much. Now on to old business. So we do have a few follow-ups from our last meeting on old business, and so I'll pass this over to Dr. Washington, who's I believe most of these she has an update for.
Okay. Last month, we shared in the successes that came out of the survey. And so at this particular meeting, we want to talk about the improvement. And I won't read to you, but I will share with you that DODEA has taken everything very seriously. And part of what we're doing in the organization is doing the restructuring for student achievement. And part of that restructuring came about because of the continuous concerns that parents have had in the academic aspects. So I'll give you a few moments to read that. And at the first bullet, where students and helping students explore college and career options, I think we'll hear a little bit about what the high school is partnering with a college to work on the ACT pieces of information. So we will hear about that. And as you go to the DODEA website, you will learn about what they're doing with college and career ready standards. And if any parent has an idea or suggestion, please email it to Mr. Perry, because we collect that piece of information on how a parent may believe we can support children in their college and career readiness. And he will get that information to me, and we do sit down in a fishbowl type activity to review those types of ideas. It just helps us as we send it up the chain to our headquarters. When you look at high school students and African American students show less satisfaction, I think you'll hear a little bit about what the high school here is attempting to do to build the culture and climate within their school, as well as part of their safety plan project. So before this information came out, the high school had already started looking at some things to do. So with that said, if you have questions about this, we can take it at the end when the audience shares with us. Okay? All right, sir.
Okay, next topic from old business is we've been looking for the past year or so about options for our high school juniors and our high school students in general that have a requirement or would like a requirement to take the ACT. Currently, Kentucky Public Schools offer a one-time free testing of the ACT for high school juniors. DODEA, not being part of any state agency or the state education system, is not allowed to do that, participate in that. So we've looked at opportunities. Still hold out hope that we can get a funded opportunity for every junior to take that test one time at no cost. However, we're not there yet, but we have worked, and I really put the credit to Colonel County and the Garrison and Sergeant Major Griffin on looking into opportunities that they reach out and touch in the community. And the Education Center is where they went immediately, and they talked to our representatives over at the Education Center here on post, and Central Texas College has graciously offered to run an ACT prep course for our high school students, so at least we can get some type of prep for our students that actually want to take the test and are looking for opportunities beyond high school, maybe to attend college that requires that specific exam. So Garrison, key and instrumental in getting this linked up and together and partnering with our community to help our students. So really appreciate that. So I think Mr. Perry has a further detailed update. We have our representatives from the Education Center and from Central Texas College here as well. So Mr. Perry.
So, since it's a partnership, yes. So, we have, to kind of give you an update, we've narrowed it down to when it's going to happen. It'll happen 3 days a week during our target time, as well as on Thursday afternoon. When we get out, our teachers get out for professional development, students can stay and do an hour and a half of ACT prep. So we've come to the kind of the logistics of it. Also, Central Texas College is going to offer 2 career technical IT computer courses that they're going to try to offer those. I think they do them 8 weeks at a time, but they're going to offer them in the afternoon. And we're going to work with the kids' schedule, those who are interested. Work with the kids' schedule, let them out of school. They can go over to the Education Center and take their college class, and we will accept it as credit at Fort Knox High School. So they do have to, parents will have to pay for it, but it is at a rate that's a lot cheaper than when they get in college and have to take it. So I have developed the MOU. I've sent it to our legal department. I sent it to Ms. Register as well, and she's going to have Central Texas College look at it. It'll be signed, usually when we do MOUs, it'll be at the district level, so Dr. Washington's involved in that as well. So to say, you know, that it is a partnership and what, we're gonna provide the resources, Central Texas College is gonna provide the instructor and things like that. We're also looking into Central Texas College taking over or helping Fort Knox maybe become a test site. That way they can get some of the, you know, our kids take it with us here. We get kind of a little bit more control of the data and the things like that. So, yeah.
One of the things I know in responding to the survey information, one of the concerns parents had, of course, even at an early level, is paying for the courses, paying the tuition. We're working diligently, and hopefully with everybody's staff searching, there are scholarship opportunities out there for students to use while they're in high school. I think it's a wonderful opportunity. I'm excited. I think I've told several, I'm wedded to the Fort Knox community, and what we can do for our high school students will benefit us all.
So I know Central Texas College is in, they are working on the 2 courses that they'll teach. We'll get that information hopefully in the next week or 2 and be able to get that out to probably, it might come, my hope is that it gets to parents before the first of the year. And then again, we have a drop ad the first 15 days of the second semester. There's a drop ad window. There's an application process that they'll have to go through. But we believe we can make it happen this spring with everybody's efforts. So,
Yes.
thanks.
Thank you all.
Thank you. I was just going to say for the board, when you actually get all of that outlined, please make sure that you have some type of little handout for the board so that they'll know when teachers are out of session, how those students would be monitored and what they will be getting. And then when they go, those that choose to go to the education center, have that detail for the board so they'll know how they're getting there, if they're, what classes they may be missing, how many days a week, and then the results of
And I
it.
think what we're trying to think, you know, the kids would have 6 classes with us, and then they would have their college class Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then you know, so they can. We're iron out those little details, but they wouldn't. It wouldn't be. Again, this is dual enrollment, so it would be in addition to their not really in addition to, it'd be part of their regular schedule, so.
Okay.
Not necessarily, they wouldn't have 7 classes at Fort Knox High School, they might have 6, and then that's their 7th class.
Got it. Okay.
Thank you,
All right,
Mr. Perry,
thanks.
and thanks to our Education Center and CTC. On the classes that they're offering, the discussion has been over the past year, are there some vocational type track capabilities for students to take? Used to have that many years ago, for anybody that was maybe here, 15 years ago or longer. That kind of has faded out due to funding and some other, facility capabilities and all. So this is first attempt to try to provide some type of additional opportunities for our high school students that have interest in those areas, and we're hoping this will expand to other vocational type opportunities for our students. And this is the first step. So once again, CTC, thank you so much for stepping out there and trying something, and thanks to Mr. Perry and also to Garrison for getting this all linked up. We really appreciate it. Get the word out that this is going on. Anybody that has a high school student over here in the high school, it can't work without parents being involved and getting the word out to their students, both the ACT prep piece and for these courses to take. It's good stuff. We've been working real hard to get some of these opportunities, and we're starting to finally see that occur. So, okay, next update, Terra Nova.
Terra Nova. The reports for grades 3 through 9 were sent home. Parents would have their home report. For those areas, sir, where we're still having difficulties with the Terra Nova company, they have promised to correct those. There are some scores where we, for instance, Van Voorhees got a blank disc without the information, and so we're trying to correct those problems on that end. But he did send the information out. In January, I'll have a spreadsheet for you all to see basically from year to year what type of growth. I can't give you individual students, but I can give you that spreadsheet that gives you the growth opportunities for Terra Nova and where the district actually, community actually scored or rated. Okay.
I know there may be a parent or two that might want to ask a question on this particular subject at the end, but
Okay.
we may, specific questions we can come back to.
That'd be fine. At Terra Nova, they no longer have the DODEA contract. We have moved to park assessment so that our results will come back to us immediately. Okay.
Okay, and then the last order of business, on old business, we were needing to set up the board member training,
Yes.
and we've got that set for December 11th at 13:30 over at Crittenberger, and I think I've got confirmation everybody's available for that
Okay.
training.
All right. And so we will be there, and I think it lasts for 3 hours, 1:30 to 4:30. All right.
Okay, so on to new business, and we'll just go down through the normal reports here and then get to some of the new ones here toward the end.
And if I cannot answer everything, Mr. Tony will be back in the country, hopefully at the end of January. But basically, I have been tracking since last year. There was a decision made to close the back hall of Van Voorhees. And in that particular information, there is a structural engineer coming back to reassess and evaluate that and provide us with an update. I cannot find the data from last year that indicated what all the structural damage was, but they did close it. So we're looking to have that updated by January. Is the overcrowdedness in Van Voorhees due to the closing of that wing? There's a strong possibility that it is, but I know Ms. Joyner has been working on hiring and relocating classrooms to ease the crowdedness there. Okay. As for, yes, sir.
I'm sorry.
What else?
You're still going on the Van Voorhees piece?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay, Mr. Neal has kind of been our liaison with Van Voorhees. I don't know if he has any comments or anyone else potentially to add.
Well, I don't have any additional comments right now. She's kind of like hitting comments as answering my questions as we go. I was just trying to look for the parents' sake, expected date of when this may be done, taken care of. But you're going down the line, so I'll just wait to follow.
Okay. I have a telephone conference next week
Yes.
to try to pin the organization down, the engineers down, to tell me when are they coming in, what are they going to do, and how quickly can we get an assessment. So I can email that to you, but have it ready for the board next week.
Okay.
Would you like to be a part of that conversation?
Yes, ma'am, please.
Okay. Can you Skype, or you're gonna have to come to me? You have to come to me?
I have to come to
Okay.
you.
Okay, so I will make sure that you're invited, and anyone else that from the board that would like it.
Dr. Washington, one additional question I will ask. I don't know that this was really this hallway or this in the classroom issue shutdown was really that well known at all. It sounds like it was shut down last year,
Yes.
last school year.
At the end of last year?
No.
It was not.
My son was in that wing all last year, and we did not know that there was any structural issues with that part of the building.
Okay, so after last school year, sometime in the summer, it was
Summer,
determined
yes.
to shut that wing down. But I'm a little surprised that we didn't have a fix-it plan at that point, and where that failure was, because we didn't anticipate the size of the class, or the size of the school at Van Voorhees, so we've kind of missed, really, somebody along the way has misstepped in that analysis and assessment. And we've got to get that rectified ASAP, because if they can utilize that space and need to utilize
They
that
need to
space,
use it, yes.
we can't go another semester, I don't believe, in the
No, no,
situation
no,
we're in,
no.
so.
Yeah.
And so,
And I just learned of a closing, maybe a month ago. Someone had been working it and never communicated it with me. So in the transition, that was not part of what was left for me by Mr. Gershner or Dr. Huddleston. So,
right, right. So if any, obviously I know you will, but we'd just like to stress expediting any kind of repair. And we have a unique opportunity with this Christmas break to potentially get in there and start getting some stuff
Yes.
fixed. And maybe hopefully early next semester have the ability to utilize that space.
yes, and I'm in total agreement with that, so.
Okay, thank you.
Can I carry on what
Yes.
you said? With that being said, let's say for some reason that wing cannot be open, are we gonna look at a plan, for those students, or what we're gonna do since the overcrowding has become an issue, we cannot use that wing? What we do with the, excess student, is there another plan for that, to backfill that, so to speak?
Part of it has been started by Ms. Joyner to realign the classrooms, and I know that Mr. Tony had talked about how could we bring in trailers if we had to. So they are looking at something else, but it is not finalized until I talk to the Tiger team and the Corps of Engineers to get a plan in place.
Well, even with that, we were told that even if they do open that wing, you don't have teachers to provide us for that as well. So even if you can open the wing in January, that does us no good for teachers if you don't have them and you can't provide them. And if you do have them and can provide them, then why don't we have them now?
And we've got the vacancy report that we'll do on the personnel actions, so that kind of can address where our vacancies are, and would potentially, I know Dr. Washington can address that, the actual teachers that are on hire or and some
Yes,
other at.
there've been several hired, so we will
Right.
address that. The new Fort Knox High School, middle school, that status report is that the contractor's Walsh Construction is guaranteed that we would be open in May 2018. I will be going back in to look at the charrette and talk to Mr. Perry. More than likely, since you're part of the high school, you will want to be involved in that, because if they're not going to be on time, we need to know ahead. But right now, they're guaranteeing that we're open May 28th, 2018.
So this upcoming May.
Yeah, this
Okay.
upcoming May.
Okay.
So,
So
Mr.
that potentially means we're ready to operate in there in the fall of 2018.
2018.
School year. Okay.
So Mr. Perry will also include you in the email when they're doing the charrette, so you can come in as a representative for that particular bill.
As experience has given us from this building, the punch list after the acceptance is probably
It's
the
probably a
longest
long
part,
list.
so we need to be prepared. I don't want, if it's ready, we probably need to do everything we can to make sure we can move into that in the fall and kind of have that break from the old Scott facilities. So.
So I do know that the Tiger team that's working on this will have meetings starting in January, late January, for us to start the transition from Scott
Okay.
to the high school, and then to determine if all of Scott, because that enrollment has gone up, if all of Scott can move into that building. So there's gonna have to be lots of discussions on that.
Right.
That being said, whenever the time comes for making that decision, I know last year when deciding between Van Boris and McDonald's, we've done a committee. And I don't know if it'll be too late in the year to make that decision, but maybe doing another committee on trying to figure out how it's broken up if needed. I think teacher feedback on that would be great, because they're gonna be the ones in there knowing how it's working in the current facility, and maybe them tour and see the new facility.
So I hear you saying a committee
Mhm.
to look at the reorganizing of Scott
Scott.
and the high school. And also, I heard you say the word touring. Are you wanting?
I'm thinking like the teachers themselves, because they know the structure of like where they're at now versus, and then seeing what they're gonna be getting into and how, I mean, their feedback's gonna be the most important as far as restructuring who goes where, what's kept over at maybe the old building if necessary versus the new building.
And I think there's a plan that has some of that already laid out, so I will get with Mr. Perry to get the board that discussion that happened long before he arrived.
Okay.
So you all can see some of that, and I don't mind working with the committee. Would you like to be a part of that committee?
And, yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
And I believe, Ms. Perry, you and Ms. Davis will probably be talking about that whole plan anyway, so it may just be obviously letting us know what it is, so if we
There's
have a
plans,
number.
there's plans for each of those spaces already, but we have to kind of marry that to the current staffing. And again, like Dr. Washington said, student population, and see how that goes. And so,
Okay.
And then the water retention drain at King Solomon, Mrs. Gibson can give us more of that. But the maintenance indicated that the water doesn't exceed 14 inches at any given time below the draining. So I have not gotten the support to fence that in yet.
Okay, so for anybody that's here that doesn't know the concern on that, if you drive into the front of the building, I guess this is the front, there's a drainage drain that's down there in that retention pond area. When it rains, all the water collects there. Well, that sticks up about, I don't know, about 18 inches above the ground level. So it takes that much water to get to the drain before it starts draining, and the concern is getting a fence around there, number one, so it keeps anyone from going down in there whenever it's got water in it. And then number two is the length of time it takes for about just less than 1.5 feet of water to drain, because it's not going to go down the culvert into the drainage system. So I believe the board's opinion on it is it really should be lowered down so it can be draining appropriately, because if you have 12 to 16 inches of water there and somebody does happen to get in there, it doesn't take that much water for somebody to potentially have a drowning situation if it's a child. So,
And I will take that back to the,
so I'm probably should say the I know when we get through these topics, we won't have questions immediately, but in order to get to the end where we can take more questions and more of your input, if we could, and we're not ignoring, so Mr. Stahl, I apologize, and for our guests back here as well. We will get back to you, but sometimes we want more time at the end, and if we delay as we go through the topics, we have less time at the end for participation. So bear with us. I've made notes, so we'll get back to you guys. Hold those thoughts, and we'll get back to you for your questions.
And Colonel Doring, when I meet with the maintenance here next week, I want to put you on speakerphone so that they can continue to hear.
Okay.
And we send it back up the chain.
Great. Okay. Thank you. And like I said, the problem is just to say it's going to drain, and 14 inches or less is not enough to be concerned about. If anybody's had anybody that's experienced something in water, it's not a good situation. So if we can mitigate that and take that completely out of the equation, I think that's probably the right thing to do.
The food
So we're now, so
Service
that takes us through all business. Are there any other comments from the rest of the board? Okay, if not, now we go to new business. And,
I think you're on the cafeteria.
oh yeah, we're already on new business, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I had it.
The report is in your packet. I want you to look over and see if you have questions. I've only received one email where where the math is having a difficulty of collecting from a family, but you know, 1 out of the 1,000 or so children, that's not bad. And how did the Thanksgiving meal turn out for you all?
I was gonna, if any parent in here did not go have a Thanksgiving meal, I know at the high school it was fantastic. I went over there and had one there. So if you didn't go, you missed out. So the next time that the school invites parents to come for a meal, I would say go do it because they went all out and it was really, really good. So I think that's the feedback, at least I know from the high school. I don't know about the other schools, but I've seen a lot of head nods. So
Yeah,
it looks
heads
like
are
it was
nodding,
good.
yes, that was good.
Yeah.
Van Voorhees?
Yes.
Yes, okay, very good. Van Voorhees. So, and that has been and I hate to say for 40 years, but in 40 years they have continued to provide such quality, and so we do encourage parents to participate in that, so that's good.
I did ask students too, and they said that was the best meal they've had all year. So. But I haven't sat in on any of the other meals, so I don't know what the rest of
That
it
was
looks
across the
like.
board.
The best
I
meal
heard
they
from
had.
the students at Scott, they said it as well. It was
I think
across
the implied thing is they would like Thanksgiving dinner every day.
Every day.
Every day.
Every day. The next one is the financial report, and I know we have fixed this one, but principals know they have to have that 50% of their money spent, and 80% by the July. I know people are spending, and you see all across Kentucky. I did not separate out, so you could see what's happening in Campbell as well as in Knox. But they are getting those expenditures taken care of. They have all of their staffing with their SSAs and their budget people. So that is completed. And we'll keep an update on how they're spending.
Okay.
Glad King Soliver finally got money in their budget.
I noticed that.
Yeah. Okay, this is the current enrollment across Knox. As I spoke with you all, I think a couple of weeks ago, we did not expect, and we're unsure where all of the children came from, but we're very thankful. And so with these numbers,
We know where children come
they're,
from.
well, okay, I didn't get that one right. I have to watch it. Cut that from the video. Have I turned red?
Sorry, I couldn't.
Okay. Let me rephrase that. We are unsure how many families have moved in, but we are very thankful for that. And because the staffing was based on last year's numbers in September, we are now faced with this overcrowded issue. So it continues to grow, and we are doing, sending up reclaimers to headquarters because of the size of the enrollment here.
I will add one thing. I know Mr. Neal, who's our representative with Van Voorhees and everything, he's been very open and he's had a lot of input from families and parents, and I know we had a good representation here. This is a top priority for the board, so know we're working on it. I know patience is not a virtue, is that correct? But unfortunately, we know how, we've all been military, so we know how kind of things work. So I know Dr. Washington has made a promise to try to get some things rectified as soon as possible, but we are kind of at restraints of certain actions taking certain amounts of time and stuff. But we recognize it. We know there's issues. It's not fair to children if they're not, if it's overcrowded and exceeding capacity. So it is one of our top priorities that we have. So I just want everybody to know that, and we'll continue to work through that until we have a full and acceptable resolution. So.
Is there not any communication with HRC about how many families are PCSing here every year? Because it seems like there should be some way to figure out, we have this many families coming in.
Right. So I will address that real quick, but we know how many people PCS here, but we don't know how many people are gonna decide to live on the installation, because you have a choice, right? And if it was mandatory for X rank and below, like it used to be way back in the day, we could predict it, because you know who's coming with what dependents. But when you don't know, because last year, I will tell you, I live on Fifth Avenue, last year, we had at any given time up to 13 or 15 houses vacant all year long for a full 12 months. Well, this summer, they all got filled, and so my entire street is full this year. So you can't, it's just, year to year it changes, that's why our numbers, and it's really hard to predict, and we just didn't anticipate that from last year. And we do have some options though, so like I said, we'll work through that. We got to kind of go off the previous year and historical data, but this year was an extremely big bump up on our numbers, and unfortunately it occurred in a transition from one school to the other in a consolidation. So.
Just a quick follow-up, it's a yes or no question. Are you still allowing people from other neighborhoods to waiver to Van Voorhis and from other neighborhoods to waiver to Kingsolver? Because part of our concern at Van Voorhis was that a lot of families that weren't zoned for it stayed.
Okay.
And that made our school overcrowded for those of us who are zoned for it.
So I can't answer, Dr. Washington can, but.
And like you said, there is a yes or no, but it is based on class sizes in both locations of schools, and it's on an individual basis to match those numbers, so we have looked at that.
I have a question.
Yes.
Going off some of these numbers, even for Kingsolver, how many classes of each grade, I guess, do we have at each school?
Oh, that's very good. I don't know offhand.
I know, like with the 5th grade.
I'll wait for the principal.
Honestly, like with the 5th grade, I know for like King, I don't have one of the kids. That there's only 3 teachers to that room.
Which grade are you? And we'll just
Fifth
take.
grade.
All right. So Ms. Gibson, looking at 5th grade, how many teachers do you have in 5th grade?
3.
How many students?
We're averaging 27 or 28.
Okay. All right.
Right, so I know those numbers are actually still climbing for
Yes.
King as well, so I mean, that's even huge.
So let me
For
ask.
64 kids, we have 2.
Let me
Right,
ask.
but
just,
even their numbers are still climbing, when are we gonna hit our absolute cap?
we have already hit the cap.
Yeah.
Let me finish this one, and I can answer as we go into the personnel actions.
Okay.
Okay. So the next item on the sheet for the board are the personnel actions. And part of what you will see is that as the new hires come in, we will post those. We have 2 resignations, we have 2 retirements coming up, and then we have the vacancies. What is happening with the vacancies? Principals have worked to complete their list and submit it in. We're waiting on background checks, and we're waiting on release from other positions. So for instance, we have several individuals that are coming to us from Puerto Rico. Well, until the principal at Puerto Rico releases, the principals here cannot pick up those individuals. Have they set target dates? Yes, we really work to set target dates to have those in. So every vacancy that's on this list, referrals have been submitted. We're just waiting on those to be processed. Last week when I was at Peachtree, I met with the background individual, one person trying to do all of the Southeast, and I requested that these move to the top of the list and provided with dates of how long we have been waiting. So they have taken that into consideration. But the rest of the referrals are gone up, and there's one person working on all of the referrals at Peachtree, and she is in constant contact with us about every 5 hours trying to push those through. So principals have submitted, we're just waiting on the background and the individuals to accept or decline. And if they decline, then we have to start the process over and go to the next step, the next person on the list.
So let me clarify, so by referrals, does that mean that you've got applicants that qualify for a particular job, but no one has been selected yet?
No, what I mean by referrals, there are applicants on the list, and that is an open announcement.
Right.
So you won't see it on USA Jobs.
Right.
It's an open announcement. Those referrals, meaning we have made a selection, and we have sent them up to the Peachtree office to start the process of hiring, offering the position. So that referral list is going up.
Okay, so one person out of the referral list by a given principal has been selected, and now they've got to decide whether that person accepts the
Yes,
position?
and we
Okay.
wait for that. And we do put 3 on the list if we can. So if the number 1
Right.
choice doesn't accept, we go to the number 2.
Okay.
Most principals are saying, I'm not gonna go to 3, I'm gonna go to 1 and 2, and if that doesn't happen, then the list comes back to us, and then we start the process of moving forward with that. But we do know that those have been set up. I've been checking with principals about every other day, and Ms. Shelton has been checking about every 5 hours. So,
And that's the case for all the
that's
teacher
the case
positions?
for all of the teacher positions,
Okay,
and the principal positions.
okay.
The principal's position at Scott, that process was completed today. The final packet was sent up, and it has to go all the way up to headquarters.
So I'm guessing based on the numbers, we may see a 5th grade teacher on the Kingsolver vacancy list soon.
Yes,
Potentially.
yes. And the individual that works this list from, for the Kentucky district will be in touch with Ms. Gibson, and Ms. Gibson will send up a request. And if it's a reclaimer, we'll go with the reclaimer, but if it's an all-out new position, the RPA will be submitted.
One thing I'd like to do, if we can skip forward to the posting of vacant positions, since that's a relevant conversation.
Yes.
Not to split it up, but I know a number of folks in the community have asked about vacant teaching positions. I think we've got qualified teachers in the community, and there's some confusion on where you find what those vacancies and what those positions are. Obviously, we have them in this forum listed, but not any detail on them. USA Jobs is kind of how most people understand that government postings are done, but teaching positions within DODEA do not list out on USA Jobs. So there's a separate process to apply. Once you apply and are accepted, not the teaching slot position. I ran it a week ago, and the only thing that showed up were the administrative type positions and the ROTC, junior ROTC.
And you're correct.
Yeah. So once you apply through the DODEA link, then I believe that's when you, if you make it through that initial registration, then you'll see what positions are vacant for teaching jobs. So you have to register through DODEA through that teaching application link before you can see any of the vacancies.
And in doing that, that is a year-round process. And once a person has completed that process, their application is taken and it's scored. And then when principals are in need of a position, we get a list. And then we start working the list. We get an internal list, an external list, and then it's called an other list. And as I said before, what we were doing now, that internal list, it can have anywhere 50 candidates on it. The external list can have just as many. So we are working probably about 100. Are you interested in an interview? If so, what date and time? And so we do go through that process, and then we do the background check. We have to check references. And part of what I would like to say to the community, if you don't have up-to-date references, that delays the process. And so we have to check all of those references. So it's a lengthy process.
Okay. One last question on that topic. Is the same process required for substitute teachers? Do they have to go in and register through the same way in order to be hired as a substitute or put on substitute teacher list?
What happens with that particular list is that the secretaries will send them. Ms. Schaefer's looking back. Come on and stand up, Ms. Schaefer. She actually does it at Scott,
For
so.
subs, it's done through USA Jobs. And depending on their education level, what schooling they've had, they're a teacher, class teacher, or a substitute teacher instructor. And there's 2 different levels, just depends on the education.
I'm not so sure that should be a continuous, I would think, announcement, but I'm not so sure that
It is
that's on
not.
there.
We as secretaries would love to work.
Because I looked the other day and didn't see substitute teacher on USA
Like
Jobs
twice a
either.
year they're posted, and as always,
It is.
So should that be looked at as being a
Yes.
continuous
My daughter
open
had
thing?
3 teachers in one day.
at Van Boris.
Yeah, I mean, you might find a long-term sub that's actually teaching certified,
Well,
if that's not.
And
there
we do, sir, we do that because we do look for those teachers. If they're, a lot of them are wanting only to substitute.
Right.
And so we go in to try to find the highly qualified, best fit for a classroom. And when we have to have long-term, we grab those individuals as quickly as we can. So I've made a note, and so has the secretary, that we're looking at who do we contact to try to make the substitute an open announcement.
Yeah, I think that might help because you can continue to build a bench, and you don't have to pull somebody off until you need somebody, but at least you have a continually updating list as people move in and move out and so on. But if you have a gap of 2 or 3 months, you miss out on a number of folks if it's not out there.
And I will tell you, Ms. Schiffer, I want to make sure I'm giving this correct information. Probably about a week ago, we started scrubbing the list because there were individuals on the list that wanted to be on the list, but they have not accepted positions throughout the community. So we started scrubbing that list. And it is a small list of individuals that are applicants or that are subbing for us.
Okay.
So, but she's made a note that that is something we want to review in January or probably in February.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Washington,
Yes.
if I may go back to the hiring process
Yes.
a little bit. Has DODEA always been a hiring process through DODEA? The reason why I ask, I'm like, what if a teacher, someone who wants to teach in DODEA is not in the DODEA link or in this pool already? How would they know about vacancies being open if they don't have access to that without going to the link?
That's a very good question. And I don't have an answer for you on that one yet.
Can I add to that?
I will find that out for you, but I do know anytime that, yes ma'am, anytime individuals are contacting us, we do direct them to go back to that link, update their application. I've given a couple of people HR's number for them to call and walk them through that process. But as far as knowing about it,
because I know a lot of people like to go through USA Job,
but they need to go through DODEA.
Yeah.
They need to go through DODEA.
We're getting questions about it on the Van Boris PTO page of new families moving in. Where do I go look for jobs in the school district? And they'll call up to the school and they're told USA Jobs, but there's nothing there. So if the board could put out where exactly to go, I think that would help, because there are people that want
I can say we'll put something on our school board Facebook website page as soon as we clarify exactly what we need to clarify on that. So that'll come up soon.
I've made that note too.
Yeah. USA Jobs, the only thing that I've seen will show up are the administrative type jobs. The administrative assistant or some facilities maintenance or those kind of things. So.
Is there a way, and I know it's not our website by any means, but is there a way that they can post that when you put in the search for teaching, DODEA, Fort Knox, whatever, that you can redirect them back to the DODEA website for applications or applying, and then, link it somehow. And I know that's not us, that would be USA Jobs, we can do that, but if we contacted them.
And there's a deadline too. Usually, I believe it's like May 1st for the next school year.
Yes.
And so that's a problem too. Families move in and they didn't know they were coming to Fort Knox, or they come in August. They may not get. They may do the application process then, but they may not get on the list for that school year.
Right.
So I believe May 1st is the deadline for next school year. So everybody has to update theirs or get theirs in by that date to be considered for next school year. A great teacher might come to my office and, I'd love to get her, but she didn't put her application in back in April of last year.
Right.
Unless I scrub a list and can't find anybody and really get, it's hard to get that person on a list for the current school year. So that's something to keep in mind. I don't know.
And I've made a note of yours, and so when the board meets to talk about that, we need to probably come up with a plan of how we can address that.
Okay, thank you. I know we've kind of been putting that one pretty hard here, but it's a laborious process, any military or government employee job. I guess alternative to what you're saying, Mr. Perry, is probably if someone was able to become a substitute qualified or accepted, then maybe you could still get that individual in at some point if they didn't meet the cutoff for the full-time hire. So that could be an option.
And Colonel Doran, I'll send an email today back to the HR person at Campbell and ask to go ahead and see if they can't reopen for substitutes. I can do that today.
Thank you.
Open announcement for substitutes.
Okay, I think we've talked about positions and hiring and all that
Good.
pretty well, so now we'll go into principal reports.
Ms. Joyner, would you like to share yours, or 30 seconds?
First, I want to say that, just to piggyback, we did have our Thanksgiving luncheon where we served over 500 families, so we want to thank everyone for coming out and participating in that. On last Tuesday, we did Donuts with Dads, and that was a huge success, and the kids were really excited, and they made snowflakes, and now all of our snowflakes are hanging up. We just completed our Scholastic Book Fair, buy one, get one free. For the last 3 days, we sold over 5,000 books, so thank you for that. And our teachers continue to receive their professional learning on implementation of our CCRSM standards.
Thank you. Mrs. Gibson?
We did not have a Thanksgiving luncheon because all of our tables were not here, so we are having a holiday luncheon next Friday, and we have reservations for about 550 families, so we're really looking forward to that and having that tradition here again at King Solver. We wish to thank our PTO for our fun family night before Thanksgiving for our turkey bingo. That's been a tradition that's kind of followed us, I think, from school to school now. And there were between 50 and 60 families here, and they gave away, I think, 18 free turkeys, and a lot of big fun going on that night. We would like to highlight our warm and fuzzy tree that's going to be put up on our stage in our commons area. Students and families can donate scarves and gloves and mittens and decorate the tree. That'll be donated to the Red Cross. So that'll be done by students here in the next few days. I would like to brag about our kindergarten team. They took on the endeavor of doing a project-based learning project as a grade level. First one in the school in the lower grades, and they created a community. They literally built a small community after bringing in presenters to talk about the different roles in the community. And they learned about the different types of people that serve in different roles, and they built this actual community, and it was on display for a few weeks in the grade level in the neighborhood. And so it was really exciting for them to do that. So we really want to praise them for that achievement. That was really exciting. As Dr. Washington shared, the Terra Nova scores have just gone out. We weren't sure when they were going to do that, and that just happened yesterday. So I'm going to put together a really quick note to parents that we're going to have a principal and pastry session one day next week. I'll send that out, and we're going to teach parents how to look at those score reports. So we'll be sending that out to parents and invite them in for that.
Thank you. Mr. Perry.
Just real quick, we talked about the CTC partnership we've been doing. Winter sports are underway, so we've had good turnout this first week in basketball, and come out and support the kids, boys and girls. Winter holiday concert was last night. Had an excellent turnout. The kids in the choir as well as the band did a great job. So thanks to Dr. Compton and Ms. Hibbard. We had a nice reception afterwards, so it was really nice. We also have State of Kentucky, the governor does a scholars program. We've had 3 students that have qualified and are putting in applications for that. So we're hopeful that those 3 will be able to participate in the governor's scholar program. So that's it.
That's very good. And for Scott, Ms. Davis is out, and so she has listed that we had 3 students participate in the Native American celebration, and I believe those students shared their writings, and so we were very pleased with that. Then we had 2 winners for the Selfie Fire Department contest, and there was a 6th grader that won first place and a 7th grader that won first place. And then Scott has had their holiday celebration, and it was last Tuesday, and very good comments that have come in from parents for that. Okay? All right.
Thank you.
We are ready then for the high school, as I shared with you. Last month, there had been several questions about what's going on at the high school. And so that team is going to share. And what I did was ask for Mr. Perry to work with me and to work with a team of individuals. And on that committee, there are both principal and assistant principal, Miss Kidd, several individuals from the high school, counselors, the safety officer. And so the very first thing that we did when that committee met, to hear all of the, well, this isn't working, that's not working, and as we call it, the gripe and complaining, I asked them to sit down and tell me what was good at the high school. And so, yeah, I wanted to hear what's good, what's happening for children. And then they will explain their process that they went through, because I felt like when I saw their feedback from the high school students, I felt like there was more good than normally people would be saying. So Ms. Kidd's going to do a prezi. Okay.
Okay. It was my pleasure, actually, to do an update on the high school, because I have been in and out of the high school quite a bit since the beginning of the school year. So if you guys could click on that first arrow at the bottom for me, please. Like Dr. Washington said, we first started this committee to, we started a school culture, climate, and safety committee. And it includes lots of people. You know, I included some pictures of the high school there. I hope you can see them. Next, okay. So Dr. Washington is on the committee. Myself, I'm the certified union president, the association president. Carolyn Duff is classified president. Mr. Perry, the principal. Mr. Dominguez, the assistant principal. Renee Compton is the building representative. Jennifer Washington, a teacher from the high school. Pam Harris, a counselor from the high school. Brett Jackson, the security resource officer from the high school. So all of us sit on a committee, and we sit down and discuss things, how things are going at the high school. We talk about ways we can make the high school better for students and staff. Okay. And we all sat down together and we talked about what great things are starting to happen at the high school. So the first thing we noticed, somebody sat around at the table and they said, well, you know, student council really took the lead to promote a positive attitude during Spirit Week and homecoming. And that's what these pictures are from. And someone else said, well, you know, there were pockets of teachers who had really started to collaborate a lot more. And someone else said, well, guess what? Tardies have gotten a lot better. They've really improved at the high school. Okay, next. And then another, I think it was Mr. Dominguez or Mr. Perry said, well, parent-teacher communications really improved at the high school. And then someone else said, well, Ms. Harris actually said teachers have been really supporting and interacting with the counseling office a lot more. They've really been coming and asking us questions and wanting to know more about what we do and things like that. And then another teacher said the staff has been very flexible with all the changes that we've had to go through over the summer, because DODEA has really put us all through the ringer. You know, they put all these changes on us at once, and hey, we're still here in one piece. Number 7. You know what? Teachers at the high school have really been going that extra mile for kids. Okay, next. And number 8. I, for one, when I went through that building, those kids had that whole school decorated like the Cartoon Network. And it was really cool. They really, you could tell that they put their heart and soul in those decorations. And they were really, you know, they were cutting up with each other. They were interacting with the teachers, and it was really nice to see. So, you know, during Spirit Week, they really had spirit. And number 9, Fort Knox High School has a really great staff, and they have a wonderful group of kids. And, you know, that's the bottom line, that there are great teachers, and they are a great group of kids at the high school. And number 10, this committee is really dedicated to making sure that the high school is a great place to work and a great place for kids. Okay? And I, for one, being the association president, I am on the other end, and I want to make sure it's a great place for staff to work. And I want to make sure Van Boris is a great place for staff. And I want to make sure King Solver and Scott are a great place for staff. Okay? But I want to make sure everywhere is a great place for kids. That's the bottom line. That's why we're here. We want to make sure everybody's safe. We want to make sure everybody wants to come to school. And we want to make sure everybody gets what they deserve and make sure everybody's happy. Okay? And I think that Mr. Perry and Mr. Dominguez are doing great things at the high school. Are we there yet? No. Is anybody there yet? You know, we all have room for improvement, and we're going to get there. Okay? But we're all got to work together as a team, and it takes a village. Okay? And we got to have parents. We got to have great parents. We got great kids. All right? Fort Knox is a great place to be.
Thank you.
That's it.
And that's just giving us the initial part. The next meeting date has not been set, but basically what that committee will want to do is to drill down into looking at what's happening academically across the building as well as behavioral. And part of what they are looking at is what are the next steps after we look at the, especially the behavior, any types of suspensions, timeouts, any of that. And so that'll be part of what we look at in January as a committee. And what can we do? What are our next steps to improve any type of structures within the climate of the building? All right. So the next one is what the athletic gate fees. That was a question you all posed. Someone wanted to know what happens with the funds. And so I won't read it to you, but I'll give you time to read through that. And then if anybody wants that particular slide, we will get it sent to you. So I'll stop talking to everyone and read it.
I've got just one question.
Yes, sir.
Going back to the
Fine.
previous discussion, does the committee allow parents or kids to be on that committee so you get a little bit different perspectives?
It started out just with them trying to resolve whatever issues that came from teachers. And so in January, they will talk about what committees do they need to form outside of that main one.
And I'm sorry I was late in writing.
You're fine.
Maybe you discussed it, but I was looking at the results where I think the different perspectives might be welcome, especially the students. If
We did survey.
Yes, sir.
I'm with you. You survey kids, and 45% of them are saying they're experienced bullying or harassment, as opposed to maybe 1 in 10 the teachers saying that that's going on. I mean, how do you reconcile those different perspectives if you're not including them in your committee?
And sir, let me go back to that particular one. That's the DODEA survey.
Okay.
But our survey results from the children we will get to you all. And we do know that 217 students did complete the survey. So we will get that in there for you. Mr. Perry, would you please make note that that's part of next month's note. But sir, your point is well taken, and that committee will go back with your comment. But I do know that we started just because it was conversations that came from the Teachers Association, and that would be hard for parents to have to address those types of things.
And no offense, and I appreciate the committee's work. I just think that everyone on that committee has a vested interest in everything being presented, that everything's okay.
What I asked them to do, and I've got that one, Miss.
I'm only an outsider looking at it.
Yes, sir, I do understand that.
I hear the same things in my job too.
Got it. So but the very first step that was to be presented is what were their impressions of that next month, and we will continue to present at each board meeting some aspect that comes out of that committee.
Okay.
So we already know that we're looking at what the students have said about classroom management. That one is being addressed. So it will continue, and I will take your thoughts on opening it up. But initially, it was designed just to deal with those issues that came from the.
Well, and I agree with the comment, you know, it does take a village, but the village is parents and
Parents
teachers
included,
working
yes.
together.
But please understand, that was the initial part of addressing
Sure.
what had surfaced out of several months of meetings with me, so,
Okay.
yes. Okay. Next
Okay.
one are the gate fees, everybody's read
Sorry.
that. What was that question? I can't
wanted to
remember
add,
the question that,
Can they do that in the junior high? And
Do what in the
over
junior
at
high?
Scott As well?
And
A committee similar to that, where it's going to be doing the same with those students, those parents,
same
those
at Van
teachers?
Boris and King Solver, it needs to be done district-wide, there's no reason it can't be.
Right.
It
I
should
think
be.
the survey, as far as from the children, it's gonna be more applicable at higher grade levels, obviously. But, the parent feedback would be very, would
You'd be
be a great
surprised about the
survey
little
for the lower grades.
okay.
Those 4th and 5th graders are pretty,
Well, that's what I'm saying.
They're
I'm
pretty
including them in
yeah.
higher grades because they can openly have
Yeah.
hold a conversation and see what they see in the classrooms. But the parents on the lower grades, maybe pre-K through second, third, doing the surveys for the child.
my 3rd grader is pretty vocal.
So if I understand you correctly, you're not necessarily saying a committee form, but try to start with a survey, is that what I'm hearing you?
Well, still do the committee, but when it comes to the survey portion of it, especially on the lower grades, that maybe it's harder to get good feedback from, pre-K through second or third, doing the surveys, the parents doing the surveys for them, or with them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I think, you know, it's also important to, are those surveys anonymous?
Yes.
They are anonymous?
Yes, yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Speaking of surveys, I know we did the Doday satisfaction, parent-student satisfaction survey last year. We had 14% respondent rate out of parents. So we can't change anything if we don't have participation. So you put out surveys all day long, and if we don't have parents to complete them, we don't really know what to work on. What's
Is it
that?
the end of the year, the survey?
That was the one in May, yeah.
Okay.
That's
I mean,
exactly
it's
right.
so much.
Which helps feed into the following.
I was satisfied last year and filled it out. I'm not satisfied this year, so
Yeah.
I'm filling it out in May and I'm moving.
Yeah.
So what difference does it make to me?
It'll help for the people coming behind you. Just like I'm a senior this year, I had a kid graduate high school last year. Everything that I'm working on the past 2 years of this board, I will not see any benefit to my children at all. It's about the people coming behind us.
Got it. Okay,
Um,
so I will.
Real
get-
quick, I will,
Just,
is it relevant to this topic?
It is, sir.
Okay,
I'm sorry. I'm trying to sit still and listen to all the trophies and book fairs and donuts and
okay,
things
so
of
we're
that
back on the
sort.
athletic gate fees. here, so.
But my question is in regards to the survey. I survey my children every day and listen to what they're talking about, and we need to be talking about disciplinary and the academic decline. Because we're talking about the high schools, but let's start at the junior level, because my kids are 2nd and 3rd grade, and they have had an academic decline from last year to this year at Van Boris, because I survey my children every day. So that's the type of stuff that I'd like to talk about. If
so
we
have
can.
you
Okay, so
met
we'll-
with the principal, and I'm gonna direct you back to Ms. Joyner, because that's where it needs to start first.
I went to the school, and that's why I'm here at the board.
So I think there's a number of folks that probably want to hit that topic, so let's get through, I really do want to get through this, we're kind of pushing. Let's get to the end of our business here, and we need to provide feedback, and unfortunately, the way that we format these meetings makes everybody wait till the very end, but we have to formally get through some of the required topics, so be patient, we're gonna get there. That's definitely a topic we need to bring up on the open forum piece, okay?
We've addressed that on curriculum update.
I will say one last thing on the athletic gate fees. For the Booster Club, there's high scrutiny, and this is for Mr. Perry probably, high scrutiny on what the Booster Clubs do and the money they raise and everything. But it's not reciprocated the other direction, because whenever Booster Clubs have events where they draw gate fees, the immediate thing is that's taken away, but then nobody is aware of what accountability or anything like that is going on. So that's the reason, over the past year or so, there's been a number of folks that have really, they're like, oh, where's all that money go, and who's accounting for that, and how's that reported? Because there's no, at the gate, you have 1,000 people go to a football game, there's no tally sheet saying that we had 1,000 people, so we don't account for 1,000 people's entry fees.
So
And that's the concern.
So I will tell you, so on the, with that, we have ticket number we start with, ticket number that comes in the gate, and then that is part of the SAF. If Ms. Prather takes up $400, then those tickets are on that form when they give it to the staff, the SAF custodian the next day or that night, and then that's what's deposited. So there is a check with that.
Okay.
So, and then at the end of the year, the whole SAF is audited once a year. So I asked that question too, because I
Right,
yeah,
right.
how are
Okay,
you-
yeah, tickets make sense, so
Yeah.
we'll get that word out to some folks.
Can we skip down to the calendar, the curriculum update?
So we'll skip the calendar. We're gonna put a calendar committee together. We're at that point for setting next year's school calendar. Ms. Short is gonna be the committee chairperson on that, and I believe Mr. Neal's gonna participate as
Yes,
well.
sir.
And then they'll get in touch with some different representatives like we did last year to participate. PTO, one PTO member from one of the PTOs, doesn't matter what school, bargaining agency, a couple other representatives like we did last year. It worked out well, and I think the schedule this year has been a little bit better than what we had the previous year, so.
And to add on that, I know you may say this doesn't have a bearing on Knox, but I'm looking across Kentucky to include Fort Campbell because we're running multiple schedules and it's impacting the use of our individuals. So there may be a few individuals from Campbell sitting in to listen, so that we will not have multiple schedules within the Kentucky community.
It's imperative you get ours done first, so they have to.
So next week, we're gonna start on this.
Well,
We agree.
What you will need to do is that I have the parameters that have come from headquarters.
Right.
And so I'll get with you after this meeting to try to get those parameters to the committee and set up a couple of dates for involvement. Okay? All right. And the mission is to
So
get
that's
ahead of
that one, and then the date for command and board tours of schools. So I think we're setting up something for the 18th at the high school, middle school.
Well, it's, we're doing it across the.
That'll be the first one though.
That'll be the
18th of
first
December.
one,
Right.
and it's opening it up so that there's a meet and greet with the board members and with me there, and so I'll get that out to you all. And then I think the main thing is that you want to visit a school, and I think Colonel County, I think you wanted to be a part of that. Do you want to visit a school by the month, and maybe set up to have the lunch and tour the classrooms, and then have an out briefing with the principal? So however you all want, that's what I'll get in place starting in January with the 4 schools that are here.
I mean, I think that would be better. I mean, we want to be included or invited in the construct.
Okay, and it may be that I contact your secretary for a calendar so that we'll know when you're here.
That's the key, but she won't let us do anything unless you contact her anyway.
I would do that. And I have learned that, yes.
Trust me,
Yes.
that's the key. But
I might
Dr.
take
Watt,
issue with that too.
if I might, because I think we brought this up as well. I mean, I would like to see some of these board meetings not just done here in Kingston. Because that you can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. I can tour that facility and come to the board meeting at the same time, and it is already on the schedule because you already got it. So and it gives the principals an opportunity to showcase their potential.
Yes, and we used to do it that way, but when the board meetings were set at 11, that's right in the middle of the high school, Scott, and Van Boris is.
And I kind of filling in a little bit more over the past several years on how meetings have done and why we settled on same time, same place, same day of the month, except for this one, obviously, because we combined with the holidays, to make it more predictable. And over lunchtime, I'm happy to see some babies here with parents with babies. That's really awesome that they are here, because it's tough. I know how tough it is, so I think we got three babies here, which is awesome.
We done put them to sleep.
Yeah.
They're all sleeping.
Well, the eyes on them, okay.
So I'll fill you in a little more details on kind of how we settled this year on the way we're doing the meetings.
Yeah, okay. I think command is next, and then we can get to the Questions,
So let's
comments?
go to approach the school board with comments at this point in time. And so let me go through, for anybody new, we like to keep it for about a 3-minute question period because I know we have lots of people that want to address things. Keep your comments. We don't want to single out any particular administrators, teachers, or names specifically. If you have a child that you want to use their name, you can. But nobody that's part of the staff, you can just say, hey, my first grade teacher, my 8th grade teacher, whatever it may be for my student. And we would like to really kind of keep things from getting any kind of confrontational, so keep comments somewhat neutral on that aspect. And we will absolutely try to get to any and every comment that we have. So what I want to do is go in reverse order where I saw a couple of hands that came up earlier if we can. So Mr. Stalin, would you like to go first, or would we like start? Sure. I don't see her name.
If they would like to meet me after to give names,
Yeah, I think that's fine.
that would be private.
And if you have specific names you want to talk to, that's a good point. Dr. Washington will take notes on specific names if you have concerns individually. The other thing we like to make sure we've done as well is, has interaction been taking place with the teacher? Has interaction been taking place with the principal? And then if those are somewhat unsatisfactory or haven't had any kind of resolution, that's where this forum helps with Dr. Washington to formulate a plan to maybe address those issues. So let's go back here first, and then I've got you next. So if you can't come up front a little bit so we can kind of catch you on the microphone as well.
Well, sir, pretty much you gagged me on everything that I wanted to talk about. So maybe I need to
I
talk
just
about
said,
it
just
in a
wait.
different
I didn't gag you.
forum. In a different forum, because that is what I wanted to address. But I guess I can be general. My child in particular her academics has declined. From last year to this year, they've been at Van Voorhis for the last 2 years. And just doing homework every night, her academics has declined. I'm like, what is she learning? And I've addressed the issue with the crowding, and I think the children are not getting the proper teaching that they could get if they were in smaller settings. Last year, my daughter was in 2nd grade, and she had 18 students in her class. This year, my other 2nd grader, I have a 2nd and 3rd now. Now my 2nd grader this year has 29 students. And I am a regular face in the school. So I visit, I pop in, I'm active in pretty much everything they have going on. So I can tell you, I know what your numbers are. And the teacher is overwhelmed. And that causes academic decline in my child. The 2nd week of school, I noticed that there was a double amount almost in class of the class size, how close the kids were and how crowded the class was. And I did address it to the principal, and she told me that they were working on that to try to get new teachers in. She has sent it up higher to whoever it is you go to get more teachers. Well, we're 6 months in now, and I see a decline in my child. So that's my issue. And on top of that, I see a decline in her behavior. And it's because her teacher is in class being called curse words. She's being hit. She's had things thrown at her. So my daughter comes home now with a whole different attitude. And I'm looking at my daughter like, who is this kid? Because I have not raised her that way. I raised a strict home. My children are brought up proper. And she is coming home with things that I know she is picking up from other children. I screen all of her friends that she plays with outside of school, and I know she is bringing this from that classroom that she sits in, 7 hours a day. I went to the school and addressed it on Tuesday. Ms. Joyner wasn't there, but I did address it with the guidance counselor, and I'm still waiting on feedback. I would like to know, what are we doing about these children that are hitting teachers, cussing teachers, throwing things at teachers, and my children are coming home with different attitudes? What are we doing about that?
Can I address on that too? I'm sure our kids are in the same class, same thing, I've been hearing the same thing. And I asked the teacher, you need room parents to help you. And they say it's a privacy issue. Well, I'm a green tag around the CYS. Why can't I go in? I mean, we're asking for people to volunteer, and the school staff the staff does not want any volunteers. Us parents are willing to help. and no one wants help to coordinate. The teacher said she's overwhelmed. She can't go to each station to help the individual child because she has 28 kids in her classroom.
Is that the teacher saying it's a privacy issue?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's
But
school-wide.
she's asking for help, but she
School-wide.
says she can't accept your help?
Yep.
'Cause I thought-
We're trying. I'm
Right.
trying.
We're here with
Was
the
there-
PTO.
So
and we
I guess the question
want
is,
that.
is there a different policy at Van Voorhees from the rest of the schools where parents are not allowed to come into the classroom to assist? Because I know at the high school,
Julie
you get
volunteers
clearance,
here
you can
3
come
days
in.
a week.
Yeah.
So King Solver allows parents in the classroom.
We
Some
tried.
teachers at Van Boris do. I volunteered in both my kids' classrooms at Van Boris.
So what would help me is at the end, I find out who the teacher is, and then I can get with the principal and policy. I don't want to mention it here. But I would still like to know and be able to get back with Ms. Joyner on what it is there.
So
Thank you for that.
So to clarify, from your all's perspective,
If they're
it's
not
a
volunteering.
school policy not to allow the parents in basically rather than
We,
a community school-wide policy.
as a
Sorry, have we
PTO.
finished with this particular, because she's still
Well,
staying.
I
Well, I'm
think
still
she's-
waiting on an
she's
answer.
still in the
And
conversation.
I don't know about the volunteering, because I don't have
Okay,
time to
so-
go here in the classes
But
every day.
can you meet with Ms. Joyner immediately after this meeting?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
So
Ms. Gibson,
but
can
for
you
you,
find
the
the rules?
the disciplinary is the primary
And the
concern?
decline, because of the
Because that's
overcrowding,
playing into
and
the
because of
academic.
the overcrowding, now we have academic decline.
It's
As the-
factoring into the learning or non-learning
Yes,
that's
sir.
going on.
So can you meet with that?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much, and, yeah, if you could stand by afterwards, that would be great. Who wants to, actually, I know back here in middle school, she apologized.
I don't know if you'll, well, you already looked at me. My concern is, and has always been, the disparity between Van Voorhees and King Solver. And this presentation today actually made me feel worse. My daughter is in first grade. Both first grades at the two schools have 76 children. There are 4 teachers at King Solver, 3 at Van Voorhees. And I learned today that King Solver is hiring an additional first grade teacher and Van Voorhees is not. I feel like my kid is going to the second class school. Our building has condemned areas. They might bring in trailers. And then I come in here and think this is the same base.
Yep.
My kids go to the substandard school. That's that issue. I don't even know if it's a question. I just wanted to highlight new things that I learned from the presentation that made me feel worse about my kid's school.
So there was debate last year about which school stayed open. It was between it was between Van Voorhees and McDonald, and kind of the district's decision on that was that because the communities on the other side of 31 deserved to have their own community school, that was basically why McDonald was put in a caretaker status. So not all the elementary schools were on this side of 31. Condition of the facility, part of that also was because they had bathrooms for the younger kids in the rooms, where that wasn't the case at McDonald.
Yeah,
So that was part of the discussion as well.
Over at McDonald, they would have to eliminate pre-K and kindergarten because of the bathroom situation, because it was built
As a middle school.
as a middle
Junior high.
school.
Yeah, yeah. So that's part of on the facility, why that school was decided to remain open. Once again, the overcrowding, that was not anticipated, but,
Why is Pritchard not zoned for King Oliver then? Because we get
Well,
buses.
Miss Kidd, excuse me. Let him finish.
so, no, I'm good, so we got a couple.
There's a substitute in it.
We are, Ms. Kidd, we're gonna make sure that it comes back to the board and then.
With,
Yeah, I know.
with what was the question over here?
Why don't we rezone Pritchard and take some of that pressure off of Van Voorhees?
That'll be something we have to do moving forward, and I know that Dr. Washington has to relook, because things have changed from last year, what we anticipated, so.
Because Pritchard gets bused either way. It's not a community school for us.
For the Pritchard
I live
neighborhood.
in the first street. It's a
Right.
mile and a half
Okay.
Talking about Pritchard being bused here.
to King Solver.
As far as the hiring and the number
That was-
of teachers and all, that's gonna have to be
The
something that.
numbers per neighborhood were different, and unfortunately, those are gonna fluctuate continuously throughout the year. There's nothing we can do about that, and once we've zoned, the fluctuation between one neighborhood to another it's just gonna make a huge impact. Now, there's another option as far as zoning that I brought last year, to the table, and that was school of choice. But the way to set it up would be to have a deadline to put your request in, and anything after that, you're being assigned. It's just an option.
Can I ask a question? Has it ever been considered, and this is lofty, to put pre-K through 2 at one school and 3 to 5 at the other, so that you can keep neither school ends up with tons of kids in 2nd grade and the other doesn't have that many, because you're split among all 7 teachers at one school?
That was a discussion last year during the rezoning as well, because one thing I thought it might be good just to have a pre-K
Through 2nd or whatever.
through one, pre-K 1 or something, pre-K K1, and all, but I don't think that was ever a serious consideration by the previous superintendent,
It
so.
should have been a serious consideration.
But,
I came from North Carolina where there was an overcrowding situation in a public school in the elementary, and they did that, what they did is the pre-K through 2 in one building, and then a mile down the road is 3 through 5. And it was an amazing situation to help with that, and they called it, one was the intermediate and one was the elementary school, and it solved the overcrowding instantly.
Right.
And it would solve the disparity.
And it would solve the disparity.
So here's what I would like to do. Obviously, we know the overcrowding, and that leads into the disciplinary issues potentially because there's too many kids to handle. And additionally, that leads to potential academic decline or learning, kids not learning in the classroom.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Marshall, what I would like to ask is, and I hate committees, because committees, you can do one for 1,000 things, but I think this probably maybe warrants having some type of action committee put together with input from different stakeholders, and maybe we probably need to relook. Is there? I mean, we have Scott Middle School now that I think most people believe is a perfectly good facility, but there could be something because of our numbers and what we've experienced this year that would render keeping part of that operational and open. So we have options. So I would say, can we maybe try to put a committee together on zoning, schools, whatever we want to call it, but maybe, and that way we get community involvement. Obviously, we need to have Van Voorhees representation for sure. So, but I think that might go well toward kind of coming up with a plan moving forward that could alleviate some of these, especially going into next year, because I mean, we're halfway through this year. Not saying we can't get it rectified, but the reality is we can really affect it for next school year, for sure.
And we do need to look at that, especially with the new VV coming on board.
With that potential construction that may be approved real soon.
When you
on
say that,
project.
because we're looking at building where the current one's at, and they're gonna be taking it down and back up in the same place?
That I am unsure of. I just know that in my title report, there is a new 21st Century VV school, and they're taking the current plans for the 21st Century schools that have built, and then they're creating a 21st Century VV.
Okay. Also though, I don't know if our numbers are gonna allow something along these lines, or if VV becomes not part of the picture in the future, how we can do this, but what about opening McDonald's? Our numbers are starting to climb to the point where we may need that third option, and having McDonald's and VV open, whether it means doing.
And that's what I think we need to have a committee to put together to determine those. So we can put out ideas like crazy here, but we need to put those in a committee to come up with what options are.
Process change.
So that's absolutely should be on the table. One more comment back here on this. Okay, sorry.
So I've heard today that, patience is a virtue, and we've got all these things to work on for next year. But I don't know if you understand that the class overcrowding in Van Voorhees is the emergency situation. My first grader is not learning first grade skills except for what I teach her at home. My preschooler has no basic skills. Her teacher does not have time, well, she does because I teach her, but her class. They have to have a parent come put coats on. They don't have time to work on those basic dressing skills that most preschoolers learn. They don't have time to cut out their own projects because there's not enough time to help 30 kids hand over hand learn to cut a straight line. They are not learning.
Yes.
The teachers spend all of their time on classroom management, managing behaviors. They don't have the space. I go in my kids' classrooms and I literally step over kids and I literally step over chairs. They have circle tables that don't allow them to maximize their space. and they don't have room on the carpet for all of the kids to even sit. This is not something where we can just make committees and we can say, wait and be patient. This is an emergency situation. These kids are gonna decline. When they move on next year, they're gonna look back at Van Voorhis and say, this school failed your child.
Yes, yes.
And it's not because the staff doesn't care. Every staff member at that school cares.
Yep.
But we need long-term subs to open those positions immediately. You have to do something immediately.
Now.
My child and every child at Van Voorhis is currently being failed by this school system.
Yes, agreed. I
Okay,
agree.
well, so let me address no one up here has said that we're not addressing that as a top priority. It's absolutely, I said it's a top priority, and we'll get to it. I didn't say we're gonna do committees instead of addressing the current problem at hand. I said the committee would be to determine whether we can.
Committees take time though, so you're gonna make a committee
Well, I would
right
ask you to
now.
volunteer to be on the committee.
I would
if
absolutely
you have time
volunteer to
do
be on the
that.
committee.
But
committees take time.
rest assured, I'm trying to keep this from getting emotional with everyone. I know it's an emotional
That's
issue.
out the window when it involves our kids and their
Well,
learning.
and I can sympathize because I had the same issues at high school for the past couple of years, but this is not the place for people to
So
get.
when is the place? Because I was told this was the place to.
To address it, but not to get emotional and get upset about things, okay?
So you don't get emotional?
Not
when
in
it
a
comes to
meeting that's
your
a formal,
kids?
ma'am, okay, it's not in a formal meeting. We're here to help the community. That's what our charge is, and we're here to help work with the district and be able to kind of find solutions. And we're committed to do that. I don't, this is volunteer for every one of us up there that's on the board member. Volunteer, and the hours and time we put into this is specifically to make this a community. I want more people on this post, so I want more kids in these schools, because we need to have the first choice when people move here and come here, need to come to our schools. And this is a serious problem, and we recognize that. I don't want people to think that we don't believe this is a serious issue. We do, and we're gonna work
Well, I know you know
everything
it's a
we
serious
can.
issue, but I mean, every meeting is here, like you've said, so you haven't seen Van Voorhis, you haven't seen.
I've
how
been to
many
Van
buildings-
Voorhis, I've been there.
Not
so-
everyone here has.
Okay.
Been able
But
to.
let me,
But
let
there
me
are about us
say
on
something right
board that
fast.
are
I want to
over
cut
there.
nobody off. I've been to all the schools. I'm
Yes.
a Garrison Sergeant Major. I just threw that out there. And I hear y'all and I understand y'all frustration, because me and my battle buddy here more than that, because y'all definitely let us know about everything that's going on there. So I feel y'all pain. I truly do. And I know that these people on this panel right here, because I've been to everyone since I've been here in July. This is the most I done seen. I ain't never seen this many people in here.
I'm new here too, and I didn't know until Tom.
And so I guarantee you, if you keep coming to the meetings, keep addressing it, not getting excited, because when you get excited, I'm gonna just tell you right now, nothing really happens when you get excited.
Can I say we doubt how quick progress can be? You don't have the current superintendent listed on your website. I didn't know who the superintendent was.
The superintendent just got replaced, just new.
I'm pretty.
It's not my
but-
website.
I mean,
It's not my
we don't
website.
say.
Okay, so let me read this. So, this isn't about websites, this is about solving the problem at Van Voorhis. Okay, so I will promise that we understand it's an emergency situation. I please don't want anybody to think that we're just a bureaucratic body up here. We're not. We're absolutely not. And I will say, some things take time. I mean, some things you can't change overnight. Some things you can, but we will.
We've been bringing up these concerns. We've been volunteering in our classrooms as much as we can. We've been doing everything we can as parents, and we've been as patient as we can.
Right.
Until we got kids coming home saying, you know, kid, my class starting to kill me.
And I'll tell you, I wish we'd have known this in September, at the first meeting in September, because I don't think this emerged, this hadn't emerged just now this month.
Well, no,
so.
because you said go up the chain. So I went to my contracts teacher, I've talked to the principal, I've talked to administration, and now I'm at the board meeting.
Okay, well, we're gonna address it, so
Yes.
it is an emergency situation, and I promise you, within the powers that we have as a school board, we'll make sure that we address everything we can to make it better for you guys.
And sir,
Absolutely, and your kids.
I've written down.
Because it's a shame if our kids are not learning, because that's all we're here to do, is make sure our kids learn. So,
And I've written down all of the choices.
Carl Lewis,
Sir.
you've been waiting patiently,
I
thank you.
have been. So again, Van Voorhis, I have a second grader. His teacher's been out of school since before Halloween.
October
And we-
27th.
Yes, okay, and, you know, nothing against the principal, but we've been asking what's going on. Why hasn't he been in the classroom and why we've had a sub. So the first time I'm hearing that there's an issue is when CIE calls me. And yet, the school hasn't brought the class together to say, this is what's going on. And we got a note recently saying, hey, it's gonna be a few more weeks so we can give you more information on what's going on in the classroom. And I see on the note here that he's retiring.
Right.
So there's definitely a disconnect, and I just don't understand why the class couldn't have been brought together and talked to the parents. Because of course, there's scuttlebutts going on, and you know how the rumor mill goes.
Right, right.
But it needs to be addressed or at least discussed. Because again, he's a great teacher. He will be missed. But
So that.
there's been a decline as far as what he was doing and what's going on in the classroom right now.
Right.
Definitely a
The one
decline.
that's in there isn't doing
And she isn't
anything.
doing anything. My
Nothing.
son's not learning anything.
So I can address that. Anytime that a statement is made and I need to do an investigation, I remove the classroom teacher. I am not at liberty to discuss that while there's a review of it. And so I can't bring the kids together. I can't bring the parents together to discuss because I don't want to violate any of the practices while there is a review. And yes, Mr. Baker is retiring now, and that's his personal choice. So at this point, ma'am, he's retiring. So at that point, until the investigation is closed, I can't share anything.
And I understand that you can't share that what the issue is with the investigation, but the first time we hear that there's an investigation shouldn't have been from CID, and I think that's my point.
Well, at that point, we didn't know what would happen after FAP got involved. So your first inkling and my first inkling, CID, and I can't control that. Okay. Now, as far as getting a replacement of teacher, we are looking at long-term subs. RPAs have been submitted. We're looking at long-term subs to bring the quality of instruction back. Yes, ma'am.
You can finish.
Yes, ma'am. I was telling her that. I do feel the pain. As a former teacher, I do feel the pain. Losing a classroom teacher that was of quality, I do feel that pain. Can you replace a Mr. Baker?
No.
No.
And I understand what you're saying, but I really think the class should have been brought together and said there's an issue. Because I know what the CID agent told me, so I have an idea of what it was, but nothing from the school.
And
I have a question about that.
cannot explain any of that.
When it comes to him being removed from the classroom, does CID do that, or does the?
No, I remove from classrooms based on any type of unfounded allegations. And so at that point, it's turned over. We can't touch it anymore as a school system.
Right. I knew that. I just, when she said he was being removed and he'd been removed, and you weren't aware.
No, I am aware because I removed.
Okay.
But as far as all of the details, I don't have that.
Can I get an understanding of what you're saying? So
Yes.
you're saying like when the teacher was being removed, you would have liked to be informed because now your child is going to be exposed to another teacher. So whatever was going on, just let us know so we can prepare the child.
Exactly, as opposed to CID being the one, because we're thinking maybe he's training or something.
Yes.
First call you get is CID, nothing from the school.
Understand.
Unsatisfied.
So, I will say, Ms. Joyner did
She
send a note, and because my child is also in that class, so she did send a note, and I did get an email. Reading the note, the email made it sound like he was going to training until we got the phone call.
Exactly.
But she did send, if it didn't make it, because I got the note in my kid's folder, so, and then I did get an email.
So I need to go back here. I'm trying to keep track of where we're at, so go ahead.
On her subject, we've had a long-term sub for 2 months now. She's a wonderful person. She can't do anything. She's locked out of a computer. She can't help our children. We're getting all kinds of math homework, but as far as reading goes, we haven't done any of the reading tests because she can't get in the computer. I mean, she's a wonderful lady, but in this past 2 months, I had a child who's already struggling with reading, and now we're going even further back. And so if she could have some kind of help getting into the computer, I don't know if it's a DODEA thing or that she can't get in, because I get it, she's a sub, she shouldn't have, you know.
No, I would not say that. I mean, if you're
But-
gonna be in their subs with some for like long-term. you
But
have to have that.
long term, she should be able to get in and do. We have a project this week that we're kind of just butt
I
out.
would ask just a general question, how are the grades being administered in that class?
They're not. We
You
have
no
had.
idea what grades on anything that you do.
Because before they used to take reading tests on books, but that stopped because she said she doesn't have access.
Yeah.
There was no transition between
So,
her and him.
can I ask for an executive session
You
that
got it.
specifically address the Van Voorhees issues?
Sure will.
Okay.
He's been patient.
Yeah, I know we have.
Right, I know. Hey, we're here as long as we need, we're past our 12:30 timeline, but we're here because we need to be here, so.
You're blessed to have
I'm good to go till whenever we need to break, but at any rate, Mr. Stalin, go ahead.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Where you specifically said to yourself that you're looking for long-term subs, right? Now typically a sub is filling in for the actual teacher, right? So they are not in the classroom every single day with that student. Now there are some kids, I have one specifically, that needs stability of a teacher seeing the same face every single day. Because when you bring in a different teacher one day and bring in another teacher this day, that's not stability, and that child doesn't comprehend what's going on. So I guess my question is, what's could be done about keeping that same face for the child day in and day out, which will
Is
help
there
them be more at ease?
Specific grade, and I know you're meaning in general, keeping the subs in there, and we do that to the best of our ability.
I guess the question, I think maybe to phrase it, is how do you identify a need for a long-term sub? Because does it go 30 days, 60 days, where you
10
have like
days.
8 different people in there subbing over a period of time, but rather than, when do you immediately define a long-term
The
sub?
long-term sub is defined at 10 days, and in that process, those subs can tell us, yes, I can come this day, I can't come this day. And so we take what we can get until we can get a stable long-term sub in there. And he is correct, we do need a stable face, and principals do work to get that one consistent quality sub.
So if we know there's an absence, long-term absence grade, or say a retirement, at that point, we know we need a long-term sub.
And they start the
So
long-term
you
sub.
find somebody that will do it.
Start the RPA to get a permanent teacher in.
Right.
So when you say to get a permanent teacher in, over the long-term sub that's already there? Because for my child, she's had the teacher there, teacher left, long-term sub is there. I understand that she is a certified teacher. And I don't want to start rumors, but I've heard that this particular certified teacher is
If they make the
being
list,
replaced.
if they make the list, and we start that process with that list, and that person appears on that list, that person can be interviewed for the position.
Okay.
And if you have a specific, we need to meet afterwards. If you're hearing a rumor that you got a long-term and that person's being replaced, I need to know that.
Okay.
Okay? So immediately after this.
So it's contingent on that individual. She's never put an application in to be a full-time
be,
teacher
could
here.
be.
She would never be offered that job. You can't just say, hey, you're a great substitute. We can now just pull you over.
We do have great
It
subs.
has to be bid out to the entire community, and then they narrow it down to the people that meet the qualifications and they want to interview. So that's,
So I'll immediately after.
so it's not an attempt because she's no good to replace her. It's just
Right,
it's the hiring
I just
process.
wanted to know, like, because I know we had talked about the long-term subs and the hiring process and all that, and like one other parent said, the personnel actions here says there's 1 4th grade teacher coming in. So with this permanent sub, I'm just trying to figure out, and with things that I've heard, well, is she staying or is she going? Has she been replaced or? And this will be the 3rd teacher for my child that has a problem with adjusting to
Change.
another phase. Exactly.
Yeah,
So that's my concern.
got it.
Mr. Pendergrass, I know you've been waiting.
So James and Julie Prendergast were here at King Solver, a third grader, and then I've got a fifth or sixth grader in this middle school. And I'm an AGR, so we come from civilian communities generally where our kids have gone to school. And I've got two kids who absolutely love school at our last place that we were working, and absolutely despise school at this point. And the 21st century school concept, I grew up in it. I'm a product of the 70s and 80s, and we paid millions of dollars to reconstruct schools with walls because this system at that point was proven not to work. If we're doing it differently, great, but right now the environment that my child comes to school in is not conducive to education, in my opinion. The centers concept,
The open
and
concept.
the open concept and the centers, the learning centers. The open concept is not allowed. I work in a cubicle. I have visual blockage between me and the guy across from me, and I can hear things going on, and I have difficulty staying on task and focusing. My child is in the third grade here, and they have walls that they do not use, and I've heard that they are not allowed to use. I don't know how they pay attention. I went to parent-teacher conferences in that classroom. I could, on curriculum night, and I could barely hear what one teacher was saying over the noise of another teacher. I can't imagine with the class filled with children. And Julie's in there 3 days a week. She sees it firsthand. The centers concept allows our children to exercise a concept that they may have been taught for a while. They spend the bulk of their afternoon doing centers independently. They're independently learning. Some of them are reinforcing concepts that they don't even understand. Like I said, I'm a product of some of this environment, and I have doubts as to whether it works. The schedule is extremely constrictive. There's very little, if any, free time. Less than 20 minutes a day for time outside. So free time is very limited. There are no major breaks. Science curriculum has been sitting in the classroom for, we're 6 months into school and we have yet to implement a science curriculum in a STEM / college and career ready classroom. At the middle school level, I'll say that I have yet to see my child do anything hands-on related to science.
I have a question in relation to that.
So let her address that.
So I'll talk the environment, the curriculum. Once again, a STEM classroom. This building was built with no computer lab that I know of. Probably because the plan was for every student to have a computer. There are 4 computers for my child's class. When Julie comes in to try to help the kids cycle through the computers, it takes too long to log every individual child onto a computer.
You have to get computers from the other third grade classrooms, and there's still not enough just for her.
And then communication as a whole, 21st century concept, and yet we do not have a single portal where I can go and communicate with each one of my children's teachers. I get emails from Gmail. There's Google Docs. There's different Quizlets. There are different programs. There is not one cohesive communication system for me to. Now the best thing we have, and that's where we get the kids' grades and we can see their signs. That grade speed I like, but it doesn't enable communication to and from teachers. We've asked for parent-teacher conferences with 2 teachers from middle school. We were not scheduled because they didn't have enough time at the last time. I have yet to get a parent-teacher conference with 2 teachers.
And is that 6th grade?
That is 6th grade.
Would you please email Ms. Scott personally?
Yes.
Nicole.Scott@am.dod.edu.
Okay.
And
we have her email, and
yeah, because she's the one who schedules.
So I think, and a lot of us here are pulling out a lot of negativity, but there's a lot of great people in this system. I don't think there's a single person in this system that doesn't care about our kids. I'm not faulting them. I'm faulting one. We built a building based on a 21st century concept. This is a grand experiment at the expense of our children's education. It's great, beautiful school. Lovely facility, but it lacks the ability to provide an environment where our kids can learn. Once again, my opinion, but coming from the experience of a parent, I have a degree in education. I've taught. I was educated in this environment, I taught some in this environment. I have very little teaching experience, so I don't claim to be an expert on that. Please don't, any educator in here, please don't read me saying I'm an educator. I am not. But I have some experience. I don't want to downplay your effort and your experience that you put into this, but my kids don't like coming to school anymore, and that's the first time ever for them that they have not liked coming to school, and it's very difficult. I would agree with the parents who say that my kids aren't learning the center's concept, whatever it, the methodology or the purpose behind it is. I don't believe it works. I don't see it working for my children who are generally good achievers, well-behaved students. I don't know why we're using this concept, and I hope that we can see some change in that. But the environment, so I have 3 problems. Communication is a minor problem. The environment here in this elementary school with the walls and lack of an environment where they can learn, and then just the education in general. There is no, we say we read about STEM and DODEA and the great things. I don't see science, technology, incorporation into the classroom. There are elements of technology. We have smart boards. Our kids are not interacting with science and technology in the classroom. You know, we spend a whole lot of time on English language arts, and that's great. Big fan, but I think I would like to see some deeper dives into math and science along those lines.
And thank you for your open and honest information. Let me back up to the level of frustration with the new restructuring by DODEA is a challenge for all of us. They rolled out math first. They rolled out the ELA second. The science is to be rolled out. So the kits that you're referring to that you see, we cannot bring that material out until everyone has been trained, and it's officially rolling out at the beginning of next year. So all of the materials have come. We're waiting on the training, which will happen this, we've had some spurts of training already, but the major part of the training for the new science standards will happen this summer. So yes.
My question is then, I have yet to see anything science related in 3rd grade. And my 6th grader has not done a single hands-on science experiment. It is all theory and book work. And to be honest, one of my biggest frustrations with modern education is I have no context. There's not a textbook. I get a single page that says, here's the standards we're covering, but I have no idea what they're talking about in class. So even when my kids come home with a question about, I'm working on this in math, I don't know what they did the day before, I don't know what they're gonna do the day after, and that's a problem. I can't help my kids learn at home if I don't know
If you
where
don't know
they're
what
at.
it is, good point. I am not going to try to provide you an answer. I do have your name and number because I know your child, the one at Scott. I think when the board and I meet, we need to work on a plan to address all of the things that are coming forward. And some things are going to be tied, my hands will be tied, but we will do the very best to start a change in direction.
Okay. I mean, we're, like, I'll echo
You may
what
be
some of the other parents.
PCS, but.
Well, no, I echo what some of the other parents said. We're 6 months into a school year where things have changed drastically, and I know that the population increase should not have been a surprise. First TSC was moving to post. When we were informed we were moving to post, we couldn't find a house.
I can talk to you offline on that, and that is not actually true.
All right, sir.
We did not know at April, May last year that First TSC was a done deal. It was still in the pre-decisional stage.
And so I apologize if I misspoke about that.
No.
I mean, when we came in May, we couldn't find a place to live off post, and we moved on post. Not as our first choice, but as a good choice. But yeah, there is a crowding issue in all the schools.
This is just a suggestion really quick before I address my comment to what she was saying. I know when we were in Virginia, we had a situation come up with a teacher, and it happened that day at school. The kids came home. That afternoon, we got an email
what I want to say to that is you can never go wrong with transparency. You can never go wrong with full disclosure. And our email that came out was simply stated, you may be aware that there are allegations against a teacher. There was no privacy rules broken. Nobody's privacy was compromised. But it informed us that there is something going on. It was being looked into. The second it was closed, we got a follow-up email that said the issue has been resolved. It was unfounded, completely. So my point is you can never go wrong with transparency. So for it to be 2 months later, yeah, I can see the frustration. That would have never flown in
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that was what I had to say about that. Transparency is always the way to go. My issue is at the last board meeting, Ms. Romans was here. Is she here?
No, she is not here today. What?
Well, so I'm just gonna go ahead and say, I actually called her afterwards because by the time we got to parent comments, she had to leave, so I didn't get to ask her my question. So I called her and we spoke extensively. I had met her at the board meeting last year when she came, when she had just come on board.
Right.
And she was going through IEPs, and at that board meeting last year, I asked if there was any intention or goal to ever review GIEPs, because I believe kids on both ends of the spectrum need to be provided the services they are guaranteed by law. And at that time, she was neck deep in IEPs, and I said, okay, backseat, I understand that. We're a year later, and I called and I asked, are you looking at GIEPs? Do you have any intention? And her goal was to follow up on the DoD policy for gifted in GIEPs. She is not here today to
She's
address
not
that.
here.
Do you know what DoD is?
And DoDEA has, due to the fact that they have not updated their information. Last month, we received a new program guide. I have not printed that, but there are changes. Now, whether it includes a GES, individual plan, I have not been able to find that in there, but I do know that your voices have been heard, and there's a new document that is to identify more children, provide training and updates for staff, to look more at the individualized, gifted identity of that child. So all of that has been written into a new plan.
Because I agree with the major and from me, I didn't catch his last name, like, we're in a STEM world, like, this is the world we live in, and for our kids to be competitive, if they're not even offered the services to push them when they're ready to be pushed. You know, he's got a couple who don't want to go to school, I got one who's tired of going to school because he's tired of reviewing. So it's both ends, and I realize that both ends, there's, you know, their requirements need to be met. And
Got it.
so I would just ask that we look into that.
Yes, ma'am, and as soon as I print that document, I have your email address, so I can have a conversation and then bring it back here. And yes, she has GES. I just recognized your face.
Just a super quick comment. One, there was a comment earlier about parents being involved so that these comments could be addressed earlier. I work full-time, and it has taken me until this point. I have been trying to resolve an issue with the school since last August, and we arrived here in October. It took me until this past month to find out when and where they were. This partially was on me, I wasn't looking in the right place. But I have never, in the year we have been here, seen any information come out from the school board. And I am by no means not plugged in. I'm in Facebook groups, I know where the websites are, all of that sort of stuff. The information is not readily available, so the parents are able to access the information easily. Secondly, I think we have to also take into account that in a military community, there is a conditioned underlying atmosphere of parents being hesitant to speak out when the school is a DoD entity. Because I think I'm fairly talkative about the issues that I have had, so people are aware. So I have parents come up to me on an almost daily basis, telling me, I'm so glad you're doing this, because I don't have any more options. Because I'm willing to sit on the phone and call the district every day for 6 days in order to get a phone call back, because that's what it's taken. So I had a phone call this morning with my congressman about the fact that we do not have GIEPs. And they were unaware of the fact that that was still in progress. But I had my first conversation with them back in June. And my congressman was under the impression that that had already been rolled out.
And typically what I found online is that
line with the state regulation, remember, in the state of Kentucky has mandated that they will offer gifted services to their children. What I don't understand is why doesn't Dodea adopt the state policy and offer the services?
That's a good question.
That was the impression that I was under as well. And that my conversation.
Dr. Washington, can
Yes,
we,
ma'am.
invite Ms. Romans back?
Yes, ma'am, we sure can. She won't be the one that will handle the IEPs for GES. That's Ben Kaloje, and I would see if I cannot get Ben for us to have a conversation and then to Skype in.
I was hoping she would be with this.
Yeah.
I know there's some other things.
Got it. Yes. So I've got hers, and it's Ben Kaloje, and then Ben, and don't ask me to spell it.
Okay.
Kaloje.
So it's not Ms. Roman?
No. And if you will see me after this, I can give you his correct spelling.
Okay.
And he should be able to, well, we're going to roll out that new guide, so.
Is there a plan for how that's gonna be made available to parents? Because a systemic, ongoing, it's popped up in almost every single parent who has talked.
Yes.
Is the fact that communication is a significant issue on this installation with the schools.
The answer to that is, this committee will look, because now I'm hearing the surfacing of communication. So that has to be one of the first things that this community works on. And second, I know you have a plan in your mind of how it should be rolled out, so I'll be picking your brain.
I mean, part of the issue, so I am, as you know, we've already had meetings.
Yeah.
So I have been very,
Patient.
assertive
And assertive.
about taking care of this issue and trying to find a resolution. But I have a log where I take notes every time I talk to anyone from the school, anyone from the district, and I'm on like page 12. And my child's in 3rd grade, he's been in the school for a year, and we have 0 resolution. I have 0 information, more than I had when we started, and I came into this with assessments already done. So I knew exactly where my child was. I do assessments independently because I have him in programs independent of the school. Because I am faced with a decision where my husband and I are having a conversation about whether it's more appropriate for my son and I to live somewhere else. Because we are afraid of the cost this place is gonna place. And my #1 conversation with my husband has always been, I will 100% unconditionally support him continuing his active duty service, but my child will never pay the price for that. And that's where we're at.
So I've got something.
So for information readily available from the Board of Education, we have a Facebook website, and we have had some technical issues, because we're not STEM trained. At any rate, we have been putting, over the past week or so, we've been putting all the documentation from this year's school boards on there. Still trying to get the videos posted. I'm having some problems with that. But that's the best place to go for information from this body.
In the future, I'm a business systems analyst. That is
Yeah.
what I do,
Yeah.
is helping organizations implement communication and,
I work full-time too,
systems.
so we try to get to things as we can get to them. I'm not making excuses by any
If there are
means.
communication issues, it might be better if there was outreach done to help. There are
I will
so
tell you,
many
we did a
parents
blitz
willing to help.
this time to make sure we got word out on this meeting. I think we put it on multiple places, multiple sites, including PTOs helped us out and everything else. So last month, it was an issue because a lot of people were complaining about, we don't know when the meetings are, it never gets out. So we did a blitz on that. One bite of the apple at a time is what we're able to do. So
I understand that, but when we.
please join our Facebook site if you're not on that.
I'm there,
Yeah.
but when we've been here for a year and it's taken me, I have to make 6 phone calls to get a phone call back, I am past the point of patience. Something has to happen.
Right, and I can't answer to communication with the congressman and stuff. We don't, that's not our interaction at all, so.
I'm talking specifically about
this area.
The gifted program, and we addressed that, we did bring that up last year, because Eric can tell you that was the thing that we asked about, and there's a process and there's a procedure, and every individual, we talked about it, and the schools are supposed to have a program in place it's not a high school, because high school gifted and talented and whatever
The
have
secondary.
honors and AP and all. At lower levels,
Despite
it's
what I
supposed to
can't-
be in place, so.
I can't speak to what was done last year, but when I started asking questions, specifically in April, it took me until June to get any written information about what was supposed to be offered, what services were available, not even what was possible, what was even an option.
It'd be more what's supposed to be in place, is
But
really.
I'm saying they couldn't articulate that.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And I think that's part of what the new document.
Have you talked to Zara at all? Y'all need to
Zara.
talk.
No, she's saying call her.
She's got a lot of information, because I worked with Zara quite a bit last year on this particular issue, so. Okay, I still see some smiles out there, so we
I
have.
have one more thing.
Okay, go
She
ahead.
had brought up earlier about the bullying or the physical hands-on. What are we doing about that? Because I witnessed a teacher get pushed multiple times, and the child never left her room, and then came back the next day. My child has had another kid put their hands on them, and they were sent to the counselor's office and given a piece of candy. Seriously?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, there are some issues like that at every school.
I'm sure.
And I don't have experience at elementary school level, but I know there's a lot of issues, Mr. Perry, about disciplinary follow-up and stuff on kids in high school too. So that's probably definitely something that needs to probably be reinforced on the procedures and
Got it. And
what the infraction is and how that should be handled in the classroom and at the school,
So I will, let the colonel go,
Okay.
and then I wanna recap the
Can I ask about
events.
parking? It is not about anything bad, but we had an amazing Donuts with Dad this last week at Van Voorhees, and we had 42 dozen donuts we went through. The participation was absolutely amazing. We don't have parking where we're at, and we're trying to make it work, and we worked with Miss Joyner, and there's not a solution. So it was from 7 to 8 in the morning, and there's nowhere for anybody to park. It was raining, and the MPs were out there making a huge deal about this, trying to ticket parents for participating. And I know it's not the board, but can we please figure out some solution?
Well, if I
Because
knew that it was donuts for dads, then so let me address that
There
one.
goes the information.
Because I'll be happy to address that one. If I know something like that's going on, guess what? I can pass that to the police department and we'll work with
communicate
you.
with you. Great.
But if I
Okay.
don't, you can communicate with me. I got a police department that's pretty open to working with the public as well.
Okay.
You can call the desk and say, hey, I got this going on, so they let the patrols know.
Okay.
All right, but here's the thing, I also hear it when they're not out there. So guess where I hedge my bets on?
Right, yeah. Yeah, we understand that, and Ms. Joyner did bring it up, and it's one of those things where we don't know where to send the parents, to tell them where to park. We don't know if it's a solution where we contact you guys or the MPs, and that day we have send it out direct to traffic. Can they
It can't
park
be
over
that day.
Bluegrass
I mean,
Academy?
I would tell you, it cannot be that day.
No, I'm
It
saying
has to
for
be-
that day.
Yes, ma'am, so
You know?
definitely, I'm pretty sure y'all already had it on the calendar,
Yes.
so.
Do you know who Brenda Weatherington is?
No, I don't, I'm new here.
So Brenda is our CYS liaison to the schools.
Okay.
So I'll let you two meet each other afterwards perhaps, or, you could certainly let her know if there's an event going on. I know PTOs do that through her. I get a lot of gouge that way. So if we know that's going on, yes, we can make sure the patrols are saying, hey, I'm tracking this.
Yeah, or just if the base could say, you know what, let's open up Bluegrass Academy parking lot today or somewhere, so we love to communicate. So if we could get that information out to our parents so we can avoid a situation like what happened the other day. Because Ms. Joyner was very concerned about it and we don't know what to do, so it happened. So we'll be in contact. Thank you.
Hey, Dr. Can I bring up an option when it comes to King? Okay, so with my child in this environment, I want to have going back to King Solver and the schools and the rooms and the environment and the teachers. My child in the past has done very poorly in the traditional school setting and is thriving in this in this environment. It may not be for every child, but also, I know this is a new concept for our teachers here. Is there a way to evaluate and make sure our teachers are in the right school or classroom moving things forward?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Ms. Gibson, did you write that one down for me? Okay. That's a good point.
Okay, I know we're at a 10 minutes after 1 o'clock, which is totally fine. But I know some people are getting short on people's kids need to be picked up from school and everything. Probably everybody here needs to pick up on early out day, right?
Yeah.
Carroll County has a quick announcement for any Garrison
I'm gonna
activities.
stand up because Sergeant Major and I have to run and go pin a new fire
I
department.
told him to use his Jimmy John's presentation.
So with that, hey, Devers, there's some crosswalks over near the Devers School that some folks were raising some issues about. Had safety look at it. I had DES look at it. Crosswalks are going to be redone. We're going to put some blinking signs in there so it raises awareness for safety for the kids. The project's been approved. I think it'll start within the next 2 weeks. I had it just for the Scott Middle School. I had a newcomer at my brief yesterday ask me how come girl or basketball is the only activity offered for girls at that school. I couldn't answer that with authority. I would ask Brenda if I could shoot you the name, but if one's asking it, I'm concerned that other newcomers might have the same issues as well. Hey, just because we're supposed to celebrate successes. So last night, Sergeant Major and I went to the Youth of the Year Award with the CYS. Saw 3 outstanding high school students last night. Brandon, Laurel, and Nakaya all gave some outstanding speeches. Brandon Clay was the winner, and he'll represent us in the state Youth of the Year military competition. So again, great stuff to see last night. Because I try to always end on a high note here. A couple high notes is Christmas is still coming. Tree lighting is going to occur tonight at 5:30. If you know anybody that's going to be out there, you're going to be out there. Please have the kids converge on the gazebo because I want as many kids up there with general views as possible so I can kind of slip into the background. There is another thing for your children. There is a bowling with Santa this Sunday, 8 to 11. There's a breakfast going on with that. And then lastly, Sergeant Major and I go out to a lot of different schools. We started going inside the gate as well as far as representing. I know we're reading to kids in a lot of classrooms, so to the principals, we're more than happy to spend time, whether at the high school or in the elementaries, to do that with your children as well. So with that's all I have, Andy, thanks.
So you left out, we got the tree lighting ceremony. I don't know if you passed by the Garrison headquarters, but it's 500 Christmas trees sitting out there.
Yeah, help me get rid of trees.
Yeah, we need help get rid of them. So that'll be taking place tonight as well. As we do the tree lighting ceremony, but Santa Claus will also be out there for the kids. So if the kids want to go see Santa Claus and tell them everything that you're gonna buy them for Christmas, that's great.
One last thing, because I did the newcomers brief. If you could provide me a fact sheet about the employment dynamics, I'd ask Brenda to maybe put that out, and so CYS could represent that. As we get newcomers in, we can highlight that, so if folks are qualified that are coming to the installation, we can turn them on to that and maybe get some talent that way. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Okay, Colonel Doran, I need to make sure I have everything because it's been very good conversation and I don't want to lose what has been shared. The one that I've heard repeated again, and it's bullying. So that's on the list. Ms. Schaefer, you're following up behind me to bring back a report on that. ACT, Mr. Perry's going to provide a little fact sheet to make sure that everyone is aware of what's happening. The facilities, the draining, you and I are going to get together on that one to talk about that. Enrollment, personnel actions, an update on that to the point that we can break, well, we've gotten that, but to break down by classes. Opening the substitute announcement again. Probably a little write-up of how we do as a community in bringing subs on board, whether they're long-term or whether they are short-term. By January, the end of January, the Cultural Climate Safety Committee will meet again. We need to know if we're breaking that committee down, but definitely look at parents. You are the representative for that, sir, for that school, so we'll look at that. I don't think there was any, yes sir, you. I don't think there was anything else on the athletic gate fees. Okay. Posting of positions. I don't know what else we can do with that one.
We'll do the interaction with Ms. Weatherington on providing that for
Got
the
it.
group.
Curriculum update. I may need to break that down a little bit more so that parents can see the rollout that all of us are going through with the new Common Core implementation, and that's where part of that challenge is. Looking for the evidence of academic decline, which breaks my heart and challenges my mind that would be happening with that, and I'll get with the principal on that. Of course, we're still looking at the crowding of schools, and I have 6 different suggestions from parents of how we may want to look at alleviating that overcrowdingness. And just so the parents would know, could I have recommended that we separate those children into smaller classrooms? The answer is yes. But my whole goal is trying to prevent a child from having 3 and 4 teachers in one school year. And so I will look at that, and I'm supposed to meet with you right after, so because you had a thought on that. Looking at the GES and pulling that, and if I told you I forgot your last name, you would have a fit, wouldn't you? Burrell. Mrs. Burrell, after 2 years with you, I can't even think, processing. But looking at the GES and when is DODEA, and if DODEA is now at the point of putting an individualized learning plan for children in gifted education, which outside the gate they do. And sir, with you, communication, and just the rollout of the curriculum, and then this environment that I captured everything for you. If I didn't, you have my phone number. You still can reach me at Scott occasionally. Okay, anything else that I have missed that is my homework assignment to get started?
So may not necessarily be a homework assignment, but now that, for Mr. Baker specifically, that he is retiring, is there a plan for someone to tell the kids that he's not coming back?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Is the teacher that's in there now gonna stay?
Exactly.
I cannot give you that answer because I have not met with Ms. Joyner. But Ms. Joyner has assessed that individual and then will provide me with that feedback. And based on what I've heard from you all today, and maybe there may be some other information that, as we look through, we need to look at some different options.
Good things,
And I think coming, because they know Ms. Joyner as well.
She's the best person to go in.
Because, I can only say so much, just so we can move on.
Move on, so because they're expecting them to come back.
Yeah, Elf on the Shelf is there, and they don't see Mr. Baker, so they're like still sad and thinking he's gonna come back, so.
And I think she'll pick the perfect time for that. And then probably try to give them some ideas of, in the past, we've taken ideas from children. What do you want to see in a teacher? What do you want? And so doing that process with them and having the counselor involved. Very good recommendation. And I just want to thank everybody for all of your comments today. I do have lots of homework. It's an opportunity to make the nice community better. I appreciate it. I applaud you all. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So,
Oh, I didn't adjourn you, but I was just thanking you all for taking the time to come and share.
I will echo this as well, and the one young lady that had mentioned earlier, I think we've kind of broken the myth that it's not okay to bring things out.
Got it, bring it
on
out.
a military installation. So I'll make a promise that our whole purpose here as a school board is to make sure that we can get through issues and make this a better place as a school district for our kids. Ultimately, we should all be in it. We want to make it the best place in the world. Everybody leave here and tell people moving here, you can bring your kids on post. And if there's a breakdown there, then we got to fix it. Absolutely have to fix it. So we'll do everything we can within our powers to make that and address that. Thanks to the families that brought children today. I know it's not easy, but they were fantastic. I didn't even hear one peep out of them pretty much, so you guys are doing a great job with your children as far as that goes. So thank you. Encourage you to bring them again. Absolutely, bring them back.
Whether until I skipped you, did you have anything?
Oh, just about our Child and Youth Services Parent Advisory Board that's taking place on December 13th at 11:30 at the Stewart Training Center. That is the forum where we want to hear back, we want the feedback, how our programs are doing for childcare. And when I say childcare, that's everything on this installation. So I have flyers for the meeting. Lunch is provided. It's at 11:30. Hourly care, if you need childcare, you know, of course, if you're using CYS, how to make those reservations. For those that get or have full-time care, you will receive parent participation points, so you can earn an hour or so for parent participation, so that you can get a child care bill with 10% off. So you'll get a savings there for participating. Okay. Also, the postmaster at Fort Knox is having a contest for those children, a coloring contest, and I have pushed that out to the schools. The deadline is December 15th, so that's an opportunity for your children to win first place. That's at the elementary level for those that don't know. So it's coming out. It's happening in the classrooms, so that their artwork will be on display at our Fort Knox post office. Okay. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Brenda. Appreciate it. So with that, I would like to know if anyone makes a motion to adjourn the meeting. Okay, and anyone opposed on the board? Okay, hearing none. That is